Hey folks, welcome back to Canada's Boxing Channel. Hope everyone's doing well. For a while, I've been working on a little project, and that is to list the top 10 heavyweight boxers of all time. All time means from the days of John L. Sullivan through to now. And it's a really difficult task, because there were only 10 seats at the table. And I have 25 or so candidates who could, legitimately argue for a seat at that table. So I've sort of put that project on the side for the moment. And I thought, okay, I'll make it easier. I'll just do my lifetime top 10. Which at one time used to be a really straightforward exercise. And I started doing lifetime top 10, as you may know, I've talked about it on this channel before, so that I wouldn't have to argue with my dad, because he had certain fighters that he thought were the best ever, and I did not necessarily agree with him. So rather than argue, I would just do my lifetime, because those guys weren't active since I was on the planet. Well, of course, as you get older, it gets more difficult, right? So, anyways, I've decided to do my top 10 lifetime, and that'll be an exercise then in whittling down people, so that once I've got my lifetime top 10 sorted, it's then a case of taking a few people off that list to make room for people who are all-time greats. My lifetime, for the purposes of this, since I'm a 1960 baby, starts January the 1st, 1960. So if you were active as a heavyweight boxer at any time after January the 1st, 1960, you are included in this list. Even if your best days may have been prior to 1960, still going to get included on this list. Right. I have a couple of honourable mentions before I get to my top 10. And one of those honourable mentions is Alexander Usyk, who has essentially completed boxing. He's still active. He's one of my favourite fighters, probably one of your favourite fighters. Olympic gold medalist, undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight, the first undisputed in the four belts era. Notable wins, of course, Derek Chisora, beat Anthony Joshua twice, beat Daniel Dubois, and beat Tyson Fury. So essentially, he's beaten the cream of the modern era. And also, if we look at his cruiserweight victories, many of which would actually be back in the day considered heavyweights, we've got Marius Briedis, Murat Gassiev, and Marco Huck. And I suppose Tony Bellew, right? Like he's cleaned up pretty much everybody. He's undefeated, 23 wins, 13 by knockout, no losses, participated in 10 world title fights. Still fighting. If he was to fight, say, two new fresh faces, then he might well move into a top 10 my lifetime. I don't know. He's still active, right? We don't know when he's going to retire. He said he's going to retire in 2 more fights, but that remains to be seen. The other honourable mention is Riddick Bowe. Riddick Bowe, of course, rose to prominence in the early 1990s, became undisputed heavyweight champion in 1992, beat Evander Holyfield. He had a trilogy with Holyfield. He beat Holyfield 2 out of 3 times, beat Andrew Galotta. I did a video on Riddick Bowe. It's on here. Please go and have a look at it. He held the title from 92 to 93 and briefly in 95. Phenomenal fighter, short career, however, and many would say he underachieved. Great record though, 43 wins, 33 by knockout, and only 1 loss. Short reign, but memorable. So he gets an honourable mention. Now we move to the top 10 my lifetime. Now the way I assess this isn't like a fantasy fight league. This does not mean that number 3 necessarily beats number 9 or number 10 would beat number 4. It doesn't work like that. I look at resume, who they fought, how long were they champions? How many title fights did they have? What their overall record is. And also, there's a little sort of X factor. And that X factor is, what was their social or maybe outside of boxing impact? And that's going to be very important when we look at all time as well, right? So you get more points if you're the youngest heavyweight champion, or more points if you're the oldest heavyweight champion, and if you transcend boxing in some way, right? So it's very subjective in that regard. It's very objective in the CV or resume analysis. I don't expect anybody out there to have exactly the same 10 as I have, and I'll be super interested to know what your top 10 are. Please comment, please like, please share, please subscribe, and enjoy. So, number 10 on my lifetime, so that's 65 years, right? The last 65 years. My lifetime top 10. Number 10, Floyd Patterson. Floyd Patterson made history by becoming the youngest heavyweight champion in history at that time. He was aged 21 years, 10 months and 26 days when he defeated Archie Moore on November the 30th, 1956 for the vacant world heavyweight title. He knocked out the old mongoose in round number 5 of 15. He held the title until June the 26th, 1959, when he lost to Ingemar Johansson. Now, Patterson made a remarkable comeback. He knocked out Johansson on June the 20th, 1960, becoming the first boxer to regain the world heavyweight title. Many had tried, including the great Joe Louis. But Floyd Patterson, so he has a double first. He was the youngest ever at that time, and he was the first to regain the world heavyweight title. He faced several prominent fighters, including Sonny Liston. Of course, he lost to Sonny Liston. Sonny Liston destroyed him in the first round of their 2 fights. And that's sadly how Patterson is often remembered. But he also fought Muhammad Ali and Jerry Quarry. He had a lot of, which he lost against Ali, of course, fought Ali twice. But he had a lot of success, and his box record is 55 wins, 40 by way of, 8 losses and 1 draw. He participated in 12 championship fights. So Floyd Patterson, who was beaten by Sonny Liston, is my number 10. And I've done a video on Floyd Patterson as well. So you should go and have a look at that for a more detailed, sort of in-depth analysis. Number 9 is Sonny Liston, the man who beat Floyd Patterson. But that's not how it's calculated. He was known for his formidable presence and punching power. He became the world heavyweight champion on September the 25th, 1962 by knocking out Floyd Patterson in the first round. He defended it successfully on July the 22nd, 63, again winning first round knockout. His reign lasted until February the 25th, 1964, when he faced then Cassius Clay, later Muhammad Ali, and he retired on his stool after the end of the 6th round. He complained of a shoulder injury. In their rematch on May the 25th, 65, Liston was knocked out by a punch that nobody really saw. But, he was knocked out. However, the reason that Liston is on my list as number 9 is the way he absolutely cleared out the division prior to getting a title shot against Floyd Patterson. He was an indestructible behemoth of a fighter who was terrifying. And the impact he had was beyond boxing. Everybody knew who Sonny Liston was. And Sonny Liston's professional record stands at 50 wins, 39 by knockout, and 4 losses. And he participated in 4 championship fights during his career. If we wanted to fantasy fight this is not a fantasy fight thing, Sonny Liston goes up much higher in my estimation. Because the people he beat on the way to becoming world heavyweight champion were some of the finest contenders ever. So, for example, the Cleveland Williams that Sonny Liston beat was a much better fighter than the Cleveland Williams that is thought to be Ali's best fight. So, number 8, and this is where I suspect people will be saying that I'm out to lunch. Why is he rated so low? Number 8 is Mike Tyson. Iron Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson became the youngest heavyweight champion in history at 20 years old in 1986. He was known for his ferocious style and knockout power, and he dominated from 86 through to his defeat by Buster Douglas. So he was the dominant fighter of the late 1980s. I'm a little older than Iron Mike. I watched Iron Mike's career from its inception through to the end of his career. He faced notable opponents such as Larry Holmes, Michael Spinks, and Evander Holyfield. His career had ups and downs, of course. He went to prison, and he had a controversial disqualification against Evander Holyfield. According to BoxRec, Tyson's professional record stands at 50 wins, 44 by knockout, 6 losses, and 2 no contests. He participated in 16 championship fights. I don't think I've included that Jake Paul thing that was on Netflix in that. But anyways. Why is Tyson rated so low when Tyson was so ferocious, so dominant, unbeatable from 86 through to, say, 1990? It's because of the quality of opposition wasn't that high. And he was a brief flare of absolute brilliance. But I don't think that he has the longevity or the quality of opposition of some of the other fighters. So that's why Iron Mike is rated a little lower than many people would rate him. Again, if this was a fantasy fight league, which it isn't, prime Iron Mike is got to be much, much higher in this list. But it's an overall career analysis. Number 7 is Smokin' Joe Frazier. Now that would have been a fight. Frazier v. Tyson, prime v. prime. Most people would say Iron Mike Tyson. I think it would have been Joe Frazier. But anyhow. Smokin' Joe held the heavyweight title from 1970 to 73. Best known for his trilogy of fights with Muhammad Ali, including the 1971 Fight of the Century, where he handed Muhammad Ali his first professional loss. And, of course, he had the 1975, I guess, the Thriller in Manila. He had a trilogy of fights, of course, with Muhammad Ali. He also faced George Foreman, who defeated him twice. He took the title off Frazier. And Frazier's professional record stands at 32 wins, 27 by knockout, 4 losses and 1 draw. 10 championship fights over his career. He beat pretty much everybody who was anybody in the hardest division in which to win, the golden age, if you like, the 1970s. He came to prominence when Ali was banned from boxing, and he beat pretty much the only person he didn't fight was his friend Ken Norton. But I rate Joe Frazier very highly, and I think Joe Frazier is underappreciated by many. Anyways, he's number 7 on my list. Number 6 is Evander Holyfield. He was the undisputed cruiserweight, undisputed heavyweight. He defeated Buster Douglas. That was a massive surprise. Buster Douglas, of course, had defeated Mike Tyson. He was known for his resilience and his spirit. He faced and defeated notable opponents, Larry Holmes, Mike Tyson. His bouts with Tyson, and particularly the infamous Bite fight, are well remembered. Holyfield's professional record is 44 wins, 29 by knockout, 10 losses, 2 draws, and 1 no contest. participated in 25 championship fights over his career. So Evander, the real deal Holyfield, is rated number 6 by me. It's on my list. Now, number 5. Number 5 is a fighter I actually don't like. Some of my favorite fighters do not make this list. If it was who are my favorite fighters, there will be some changes. Wladimir Klitschko is number 5. Vlad dominated the heavyweight division during what was called the Klitschko era. Whatever belts he didn't hold, his brother Vitaly did. Which lasted from 2004 to 2015, I suppose, the Klitschko era. He first captured the WBO heavyweight title in 2000, but lost it in 2003. Klitschko regained a portion in 2006 by defeating Chris Bird for the IBF and the IBO titles. He unified the division further by winning the WBO title in 2008 and the WBA super title in 2011 after defeating David Haye. Klitschko's reign as unified champion lasted until November 2015, when he lost to Tyson Fury. Undoubtedly Tyson Fury's finest fight, in my view. He faced and defeated numerous opponents: Chris Bird twice, Samuel Peter twice, David Haye and Alexander Povetkin. 29 world heavyweight title fights. And according to BoxRec, his professional career stands at 64 wins, 53 by knockout and 5 losses. You could say that his style could be characterized as strategic. He had a strong jab, powerful right hand, Dr. Steel hammer, right? And based on his record and his longevity, that's why I'm picking him and putting him in at number 5 of my lifetime. Not a popular choice. I don't like making that choice, but since I've set the metrics, I've got to sort of put the fighters where the metrics dictate they be put. Now, we're into the top 4. Number 4 is George Foreman, Big George, 2-time heavyweight champion. First winning the title in 1973 by absolutely destroying Joe Frazier. Down goes Frazier. Down goes Frazier. If you see the fights, you'll know what I mean. And if you were alive and in school like me, that became a term that was used. So, you dropped the rugby ball and it was down goes Frazier. Anyways, I digress. He lost the title to Muhammad Ali in 1974 in the Rumble in the Jungle. And then, remarkably, absolutely stunningly, he comes back. He takes like 10 years off. And he comes back and he beats Michael Moorer, who's also in the International Boxing Hall of Fame. So it's not like he just beat some tomato can. He beat Michael Moorer in 1994 at the age of 45. Therefore, he becomes the oldest heavyweight champion in history of a major belt. Foreman in the 1970s was, if you like, the Sonny Liston version 2.0. He was actually a protege of Sonny Liston. A ferocious, fearsome beast. When he destroyed Joe Frazier, who had beaten Muhammad Ali, I remember wanting to cry because I thought he was going to kill as in kill dead, not just beat, Muhammad Ali in the Rumble in the Jungle. He didn't. So he's fought Ali, Frazier, Ron Lyle. By the way, if you've never seen Foreman Lyle in 1976, that is a fight you really have to go and see. Foreman's professional record is 76 wins, 68 by knockout and 5 losses. And he participated in 13 championship fights over his career. So, Big George is number 4. Big George is actually one of my favorite fighters. There's lots and lots I like about Big George. And if you've not seen the movie, there is a movie, and I think it might be called Big George. It's actually really good. As far as these type of movies go, It's like a biopic. It's really, really good. I strongly recommend you watch it. It's on Netflix. Yeah, that's where we watched it. Okay, the top 3. My lifetime. The past 65 years. Number 3 and number 2, I wanted to swap around because I prefer number 3 over number 2. But the metrics are what the metrics are. Number 3, one of my favorite fighters of all time, Lennox, the Lion Lewis. Lennox Lewis, British Canadian, Canadian Brit, whatever you want to call, right? Born in Britain, lived in Canada, represented Canada at the Olympics, then moved back to Britain, then represented Britain. I don't think he was fully accepted as really British. When he fought Frank Bruno, the people were still very, very sort of skeptical about Lennox Lewis. And they were cheering Bruno on. But after he beat Bruno, then he became like really British. Anyhow, he held the heavyweight title 3 times between 1992 and 2003. He first won the WBC title in 1992, regained it in 1997, became the undisputed champion in 1999 after defeating Evander Holyfield. He was the last undisputed heavyweight champion until Alexander Usyk beat Tyson Fury for the undisputed back in last year, 2024. Lewis, known for his tactical prowess, powerful right hand. Also, he only lost to 2 people, and he went and beat both of them afterwards. Oliver McCall and Hasim Rahman. The knockout of Rahman is a highlight reel. Beautiful. Lewis faced and defeated everybody, with the exception of Riddick Bowe. There's that one black mark, which may not be Lennox's fault. He never fought Riddick Bowe. And Riddick Bowe's career suffered really because of that, because he didn't fight Lennox Lewis, you know. But anyways, who would have won? He beat Evander Holyfield, Mike Tyson, Vitaly Klitschko. Vitaly Klitschko was his last fight. He did not fight George Foreman on George Foreman's comeback. Lennox Lewis, I think, he didn't duck him. I think Lennox Lewis realized this was a lose-lose situation. Had he lost to George Foreman, it would have been disaster for his career. Had he beaten George Foreman, he's beating an elderly man, right? You know, anyways, he didn't fight George Foreman. Lewis's professional record stands at 41 wins, 2 losses and 1 draw. 18 championship fights before he retired in 2003. So Lennox Lewis, the great Lennox Lewis. I'm a big Lennox Lewis fan. Number 2, I wanted to be number 3 because I actually don't like him so much. But it's Larry Holmes. Larry Holmes, known as the Eastern Assassin, reigned as the WBC heavyweight champion from 1978 to 1983 and the IBF champion from 83 to 85. He has probably the best jab I've ever seen. He also had exceptional defensive skills. He defended his title successfully 20 times. It places him amongst the elite of the heavyweight champions. He went 49-0 before he lost. He faced several prominent fighters. He beat Muhammad Ali when Muhammad Ali was a shell of himself. And what did they say? You know, karma is karma, because a shell of Larry Holmes was beaten by Iron Mike Tyson. You know, what goes around comes around, right? He also fought Kenny Norton, fought Ernie Shavers. Larry Holmes fought everybody who was anybody. It was unfortunate that he stepped into the shoes of somebody who nobody could have filled, really. And so he was never really publicly loved in the way that he should have been. Also, to be totally fair, Larry Holmes was a prickly, difficult character, right? Like he, you know, when he was when he was given the opportunity to say nice things and to be nice, he didn't. He had a real chip on his shoulder, and that came across. He said things like Rocky Marciano couldn't hold his jockstrap and stuff like that. Entirely unnecessary. Rocky had been dead for many, many, many years, right? Like, it's totally unnecessary. Speaking ill about, fighters who've gone before it never strikes me as a good idea. And so Larry Holmes was not really loved. And it's only sort of in the last maybe 20 years or so that people have begun to reconcile themselves and realize that Larry Holmes was actually a great fighter. But he stepped into the shoes of number one on my list, my lifetime, Muhammad Ali. Now, Muhammad Ali, widely regarded as one of the greatest boxers in history, first won the heavyweight title in 1964, defeated Sonny Liston, held it until 1967 when he was stripped of the title for refusing military induction. He regained the title in 1974, 10 years later, by defeating George Foreman in the Rumble in the Jungle. He held it in 1978. He lost it to Leon Spinks, and he won it back from Leon Spinks. So he was the first man to win the heavyweight title 3 times. Ali faced and defeated everybody. You can name heavyweights from the 1960s through to 1980, and Ali fought them. So, Cleveland Williams, Eddie Macon, Floyd Patterson, Sonny Liston, Kenny Norton, George Foreman, Joe Frazier, Leon Spinks, Jimmy Ellis, Jimmy Young, Larry Holmes, Trevor Burbeck. It's a magnificent career. He also transcended boxing. I remember when Muhammad Ali was actually not popular at all. His refusal to go to Vietnam made many people worldwide opposed to him, particularly in the United States of America. By the time Ali came back and fought Frazier, many people had changed their view on the war in Vietnam. Ali did not necessarily behave in the most impeccable of manners. Things he said about Frazier were frankly, unacceptable. But overall, Muhammad Ali became one of the most beloved sports figures in the world. By far the most recognizable sport figure in the world. And everybody knew who Muhammad Ali was. And that carried on into his retirement, when unfortunately, the ravages of his long career and the many blows he took added to the diagnosis of Parkinson's and made Muhammad Ali quite a shell of what he had been. It was a very sad thing because he was so articulate and so gifted. To be struck mute was a great tragedy. But anybody who has seen Muhammad Ali, particularly the 1960s version of Muhammad Ali, around 66, 67, that was a heavyweight version of Sugar Ray Robinson, on who, of course, he modeled his style and his career and who he said was the greatest ever. So Muhammad Ali is my number one, my lifetime. The question will remain, when I get round to doing the all-time, who drops off this list? Now, it ought to be the case that just the bottom few drop off and I make room for the others. But I have to reassess, rejuggle, sieve through again, because there will be some people who will drop off this list, because there are notable fighters who were active prior to January the 1st, 1960, who we have to consider if we're looking at all time, and particularly when we go back into history and we start looking at what their impact was. So, who gets a seat at the table? It's not an easy task. It really isn't. It's a fun task. Thankfully, I'm not getting paid to do it. Otherwise, I'd probably be in trouble for getting it wrong. But anyways, there's my top 10 my lifetime. I strongly expect that people will disagree, that there'll be names that I didn't include, and there'll be names that I did include. I would imagine that the top 3 or 4 are probably not going to be controversial. I suspect that people are going to take issue with my 6, 7, 8, 9. You know, why is that guy in there? Why not this guy? You know, where's Tyson Fury? Where's Daniel Dubois? Which is a good question. Where is Daniel Dubois? Anyhow, on that note, please like, please share, please subscribe, and I will see you on the next video. Cheers.